Tonight, in a major reversal, Gordon Sondland, the U.S. ambassador to the EU, now says there was a quid pro quo with Ukraine over military aid. Sondland first testified he was not aware of one, but the former Trump donor updated his testimony this week with a 3-page written statement saying his memory had been refreshed after other witnesses contradicted him. Nearly 6 weeks after that July phone call between President Trump and Ukraine's leader, Sondland says he remembers telling a top Ukrainian official that Ukraine would not get military aid until it committed to investigating the 2016 campaign and the Bidens. Sondland does not directly tie President Trump to the effort. He describes a phone call where he asked the president whether the White House was withholding military aid to get investigations. Sondland says Mr. Trump told him, "I want no quid pro quo. I want the president of Ukraine to do the right thing." Sondland says, "I wouldn't say he hung up on me, but it was almost like he hung up on me." But Sondland describes the president's personal attorney, Rudy Giuliani, as pushing for the probes, telling lawmakers Mr. Giuliani's demands kept getting more insidious as the timeline went on, adding State Department officials were fully aware of the issues with Mr. Giuliani, but there was very little they could do about it if the president decided he wanted his lawyer involved. Swift reaction from Democrats.
The president of the United States abused his power. Everything you're seeing in this transcript fills in details.
But in other transcripts released today, former special envoy to Ukraine Kurt Volker said he saw no evidence the president wanted to withhold a White House meeting unless Ukraine launched investigations. The answer to the question is no, Volker said. There was no linkage, though Volker called Giuliani's actions a problem that impeded U.S. officials' ability to build the relationship the way we should be doing with Ukraine. But the White House says the transcripts show there is even less evidence for this illegitimate impeachment sham than previously thought, highlighting Sondland's admission he does not know when, why, or by whom the aid was suspended. President Trump blasted Democrats overnight.
While we are creating jobs and killing terrorists, the radical Democrats are going totally insane.
And after top Republicans called for the whistleblower's identity to be revealed, the whistleblower's lawyer is now urging lawmakers to protect the person's identity and, quote, reflect on the important role whistleblowers play.
Hey, NBC News fans, thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking on that button down here and click on any of the videos over here to watch the latest interviews, show highlights, and digital exclusives. Thanks for watching.